Yes, welcome back. We're with Kevin Annett, who is the secretary to the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, Alfred.
Well, just in the last week or so, Pope Francis and the Roman Catholic Church have issued new rules criminalizing leaks of information with regard to sex abuse, so that in a way they've institutionalized even further all of the abuses that have occurred historically under the Roman Catholic Church, rather than become more transparent. What is your tribunal's response to all of this?
Well, it's a very serious thing they've done. It's actually defined as a war crime under international law, because in essence, the Catholic Church has become a transnational criminal organization by saying that their members have to break the laws of other nations. So they're undermining the sovereignty of other states. It's a very serious thing they're doing. Let me back up a bit, though, before I talk about our response, to simply say the way this has happened is in a typically duplicitous manner. The Jesuits over the years, and this pope is a Jesuit, of course, the first one in history to become a pope. The Jesuits are very good at dissimulation. When you read in the Jesuit oath, they take an oath to become a humanist to humanists, become a Protestant to the Protestants, in order to infiltrate these organizations and destroy them from within. Yeah, this kind of dissimulation is exactly what Pope Francis Jorge Bergoglio has just done, because they presented it to the world like this is a reform package. There's three laws they're bringing in, criminalizing three things: child rape, in essence, child trafficking, and leaks of information. So on the one hand, they're making it, they're doing all the politically correct things. They're saying, yes, we're going to bring in new laws, making it tougher for children to be raped in the church. But we're also bringing in laws saying you can't talk about it. And if you do release information without the Pope's personal approval, you're going to go into a Vatican prison. So this is a warning to every priest and every member of the church that they, under Vatican law, if you're a priest who happens to disclose a child being raped, you can be arrested, sent to Rome, and put in a Vatican prison. Now that's intimidating your own people, because then it's a way to control the whole thing to make sure the information doesn't get out. That's really what's behind the smokescreen of talk of change and reform. The Vatican only sees this as a problem of information leaks. They don't see it as a problem of harming children, or they would have done away with these policies which protect child rapists. They haven't done that. Like you say, they've re-entrenched that policy found in Crimen Solicitanus, which has been around, since 1929. Our response to this is twofold. First of all, we have asked the International Common Law Court of Justice, which successfully convicted Joseph Ratzinger in February and several other cardinals. We are asking them for a bench warrant. And now under the law, a bench warrant is issued directly by a judge to apprehend somebody, to bring them into court. And based on solid evidence that this person is a threat to a community, has violated some law, or say terms of parole or something like that. In this case, the threat represented by Jorge Bergoglio is so serious that we feel that this is a step that's needed. This man has to be stopped immediately. In essence, he is not only saying to Catholics all over the world, you have to protect child rapists, you have to not talk about child rape when you hear about it. I mean, any moral or just law would say it's a crime not to talk about it. But in Vatican law, it's a crime to talk, just like the law of omerta, the law of silence, and the mafia. It's exactly the same law. So that's the first step. We need a legal response. We're asking for an arrest warrant from the Common Law Court of Justice. We hope to get that this week, and then we're going to deliver it and say this man and his associates needs to be placed under citizen's arrest. The second aspect of what we're doing is we are saying this is part of a broader campaign naming the Catholic Church as a transnational criminal organization. Now, there's a United Nations convention about that, passed in the year 2000, the Convention Against Transnational Criminal Organizations, and it gives courts the right to seize the funds of organizations operating across borders that are harming people, that are, for example, laundering money which the Vatican Bank clearly does. That's been documented. Trafficking children, which they've done. These two primary offenses, which the UN Convention names, these are crimes that the Catholic Church is presently engaged in. They're also moving money and people across borders. These are serious war crimes. They're also endangering citizens of every nation in the world by this policy. So we're saying this recent action by the Pope is proving everything we've been saying with a vengeance. We're saying now that this is a war being conducted against humanity by the Catholic Church. They need to be stopped. So we're getting all of our affiliates in 21 countries, plus the citizens of the world, to feel empowered now to take action, to under this international law and this convention at the UN, they have the right to seize Vatican and Catholic Church property and assets, in essence the money out of the collection plate, which is being used for criminal purposes, distribute it how they want in their communities, and detain these people involved in these crimes. So it's given our whole campaign a big boost, a big shot in the arm. And, I've been getting emails from skeptics saying, I guess you've been right all along. Look at what they're doing. They're openly protecting child rapists. And so, on those two fronts, we're seeing this not only as a legal response we're doing, but also a community response. And this is going to build towards these actions we'll be doing in the fall as well.
Right. So could you set out more in detail exactly what the actions in the fall will be?
Well, we talked about this on the last interview. Between September 20th and 22nd, there's going to be two things happening. There's, for the first time in history, an international convergence of groups who are all faced torture and rape by the Catholic Church. There's groups now from 5 countries that have committed to gather in Genoa, sponsored by Rete Lebuso, which is a rape survivors group in Italy, headed by Francesco Zanardi. Francesco is going to help chair this event, and it's going to plot a strategy for not only how to unite survivors across borders, but how to launch a political campaign in Italy to actually desecularize the power of the Catholic Church. That means, in essence, ending the Lateran Treaty, by which the Italian government is obliged to protect this criminal organization, and also to take away its the powers it has to receive special immunities under the law, tax exemptions, that kind of thing, which gives it the money and the power to do these crimes in the first place. So it's kind of a twofold purpose: to unite survivors and all over the world, and also launch what's really a political campaign aimed at the Church of Rome. And the next step of it, of course, is to go to Rome on Sunday, September 22nd, which is the equinox. And we'll be holding a gathering right in St. Peter's Square. There will be spiritual elders joining us from all over the world. And we really look forward to that. And we're asking people all over the world to do actions that day in Catholic churches, inside and outside Roman Catholic churches on Sunday, September 22nd.
Now, in terms of the UN convention that you mentioned, how will you be seeking to enforce that against the Vatican?
Well, we believe that all along, and the reason we've gotten this far, Alfred, is because we've avoided a purely legalistic route. We realize that the courts and governments of the world are obligated, either financially or through political pressure, to the Vatican. It's the most powerful and oldest corporation on the planet. The recent example of that is the International Criminal Court tossed out the case against Joseph Ratzinger, a case brought by the Center for Constitutional Rights in America on behalf of a group called SNAP, which is survivors of rape by priests in America. Even though they had 22,000 pieces of evidence linking Joseph Ratzinger to protecting child rapists and actual child trafficking in the Catholic Church, the International Criminal Court tossed it out. They said, we don't have jurisdiction and we don't have enough evidence, which is completely bogus. So we realized the pressure that can be brought to bear to stop these court actions and political actions at that level. And so for that reason, we have to have a whole strategy of mobilization and political pressure on the world and exposure. I mean, we saw in Canada how just bringing out the truth of the genocide in residential schools forced, and it was a bogus apology, but at least it forced the government of Canada to respond to something they wanted to ignore. And we know the Achilles heel of these churches is their church property. Whenever we do church occupations, they respond in a very frightened manner. We've had numerous examples of that. And so we're going to combine that, um, both what we need to do lawfully, which is pursue this through the International Common Law Court of Justice, which is a legal arm we set up to get around this control and circumvention of the ordinary courts by the church. But it's really kind of a popular education strategy which has worked and is continuing to work. We know that the Vatican is extremely worried about this happening in many countries. And there's even now new common law courts set up. There's a new case being brought in South Africa for the first time. And in Canada, there's common law courts being set up in Ontario to look into child trafficking within the family court system. And time and again, we find that Catholic priests are right involved in a lot of this child trafficking, in this case in Canada. So the very fact that we continue to bring it out in this manner has them very worried. And, like I say, it's a strategy that works.
Right. And I think if one goes into the history of people's tribunals of conscience, they operate under natural law as well as international humanitarian law and social law, but they are legitimate instruments where the institutional courts of justice are not functioning, and this is such a case.
Absolutely, and one of the things I've learned from you and other people about the importance of these citizens tribunals of conscience is it's incredibly empowering, because instead of putting their case in the hands of a lawyer who quotes represents you or represents your case, people can do this directly themselves. They don't need lawyers or judges who can be controlled or bought off. The people themselves are the jurors. They come to their own verdict. And the real key now is not only coming to a verdict, because we have tons of evidence about a lot of these crimes. It's enforcement. The issue of how do we make it so that these crimes don't happen again. To a lawyer, getting a financial settlement is justice. That isn't what justice is in this case. It's making sure this stops and that the institutions responsible are disestablished. And so that's, one of the rationales behind this proclamation we're going to make in response to the Pope's recent announcement. On Sunday, August 4th, there'll be a proclamation officially declaring the Roman Catholic Church a transnational criminal organization. And as such, every policeman, every competent judge and police officer in the world is obligated not to cooperate with that organization when it's clearly breaking international law and domestic laws as well. And so this proclamation will be read. It's going to be posted all over the world, read in 12 different languages. But also it's going to be a legal instrument. So people who sign that can go up to the church and say, we have the legal right to do what we're doing, to occupy your church, to take back this wealth. I think it's perfectly legitimate to take the money out of that church, distribute it directly in the community as it's needed. This is direct action by the people to not only act in accordance with the law that says criminal bodies don't have the right to their own money. It's that simple. They're going to use it for criminal purposes. It's forfeited. Well, we say it should be forfeited in the interest of the people. And it's kind of ironic, because that's exactly what Jesus did in the temple. He took the money and tossed it out of the temple. He cleansed it in that way. And I guess you could say that's what we're doing. But it's important to put the power back in people's hands. And that's really the strategy and kind of the spirit behind a lot of what we do.
Now, if our viewers want to follow what you're doing or support this work, how can they do that?
Well, keep posted at itccs.org, especially on Sunday, August 4th. That's when the proclamation will be going up. It'll be in a YouTube format. It'll be read and a live broadcast that'll be put all over the world and live streamed at the same time. But most importantly, take that proclamation and use it in your communities at these church actions. We've got more and more groups coming forward now. We have already, like I mentioned, 21 countries. We are on the verge of going ballistic with this because we're reaching a critical mass. We have in Canada alone 8 groups operating across the country now that are planning actions in different cities. To give you one example, in Kitchener, there's a group operating in Kitchener, Ontario. They've gone into the courts and said, not only aimed at the Vatican, but the Crown of England, which, as you remember, is a co-defendant in this case of genocide in Canada. The Crown of England was declared in a similar manner a criminal organization as well. And so this group in Kitchener went into the family court system and said, we don't recognize your court orders. These are Crown courts, and they don't have any jurisdiction over us. The first judge last month agreed with him when they made that argument, which was very interesting because they understand that the Crown does not actually have jurisdiction over people, especially the right parents to hold on to their own children. That judge was removed. A second judge, a woman judge, was brought in without, this was interesting, she didn't have a name tag on. There was no Canadian flag in the courtroom. She refused to identify herself. And she responded by annulling the previous judge's decision and ordering the seizure of that family's child. We're broadcasting this case. So what we're saying by this is that we're having an effect, and they're hitting back. They're actually going after activists within the ITCCS and trying to seize their children, as they often do in the Aboriginal community. But this shows you that we're having an impact, and it's because of that direct, strategy, combining the law, lawful common law, with direct action in the communities.
What words would you like to leave our viewers with at this kind of critical time when we're all participants in this one way or the other?
Well, I have great hope that we're at a crossroads in history now. I see it happening all over. We realize, the mask is slipping now. We realize how these churches and governments are criminal bodies. And the Pope admitted that himself the other day. He said on July 11th, it's a crime to report child rape. Now, if you don't need more evidence that this is a body that nobody should morally or lawfully cooperate with, I don't know what more evidence you need. So I would say act on what you know. Don't wait for us to tell you what to do. Your conscience tells you what to do already. You know it's time to disestablish these organizations, to take action in your own community to protect your children, and to support those of us on the front line who are leading this battle. So I would remind you, August 4th, go to itccs.org, and September 22nd, Sunday, September 22nd, plan church occupations, not just of the Roman Catholic Church, of course, but in Canada, the United Church and the Anglican Church, who are also involved in these genocidal acts and regimes. Sunday, September 22nd, and Sunday, August 4th. Those are the 2 dates to mark. And contact us, form a ITCCS group in your area. I'll also be traveling through North America and Europe in August, September to of course, help lead this work. But I would just say spread the word and take heart from this, and the fact that we've broken the ice already. It's now up to all of us.
Thank you, Kevin, and we hope that you come back from time to time and update us on the progress of this common work.
Or you can count on it, Alfred. We'll talk to you really soon.
Thank you.